Take 3.
Okay, so welcome to The State. This is episode 3, and my name is Tapelo Khaje.
Jacob Cloete.
This is Jacob Cloete, and of course, in this podcast and vlog, we talk about politics, we talk about the current state of affairs or current affairs, whichever way you want to put it. So yeah, today we'll be talking about a couple of things, but first I want us to tackle youth unemployment, you see.
Okay, youth unemployment. Okay, so what about youth unemployment?
So obviously, in South Africa particularly, there's a high percentage of youth unemployment, and that obviously is negatively impacting the economy, you know, and also most of the youth end up, you know, either resorting to drugs, alcohol, or anything really that isn't contributing to improving the society and the economy. So what's your take on just the whole rise in the unemployment of the youth?
You know, TP, that's a very difficult question because I think we can always blame capitalism. That's the easy one. Just blame capitalism. Capitalism is responsible for it. But I think it goes much further than this. I think to kind of get to the root of unemployment in South Africa, especially youth unemployment, you need to go to our schooling system. You see, our schooling system prepare kids to enter university, and university end prepares you for the world of work. So the whole schooling system in South Africa is geared towards finding a work or getting a work. So there's no focus in the schooling system when it comes to innovation, anything creative that youth, with all of that energy that they have, can actually use to do something and make something. So instead of really going for, what would you say, finding a job in ABSA or finding a job in a particular mine, the focus can shift at school is what can you create to employ yourself, to become the next creator of employment. And I don't think we are there in South Africa yet.
Okay, because...
So I blame two things.
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism and the schooling system.
The schooling system. Okay, so with regards to the schooling system, I know like recently it's been said that by the education department that they're about to start introducing entrepreneurship as a subject. Some people were still criticizing it, saying that that's not enough because it's still something that's theoretical, you see. But do you think that then that could, to a certain extent, solve the problem, or at least, do something towards solving it, or...
So I saw that statement, and I think it came from the presidency, that the Ramaphosa presidency wants to introduce entrepreneurship in South Africa. So I have to commend them. So there is entrepreneurship, but my question is who's going to own this intellectual property of the kids? Let's say a high school kid creates a new program or an app. Is it going to be for him, or is it who's going to take control of the intellectual property? So in most universities, you sign off your right to intellectual property. So if you at the university in South Africa develop an app, then you don't have a right to that. The university have a right to it. So entrepreneurship, one of the biggest questions and one of the biggest conversations that we need to have is, what is going to happen to the creative energy and the ideas and the intellectual property of kids? Is it going to be their own? If it's going to be their own, who's going to mentor and manage all of those creative ideas and products and services that is coming from it? So it cannot be theoretical. It has to be practical. But when it's practical, there's also a lot of vouchers. People who's going to take these kids' ideas and big companies. So how do you step in as the government or as the state to kind of protect intellectual property of kids? So my son recently wanted to put dancing videos of him on YouTube. And I said, stop it. Wait. You're going to become part of the creative economy. So the moment you become part of the creative economy, it needs to be managed in a particular way that is sustainable. It cannot be one. So what my son, I need to think now, 10, 15 kind of videos, the type of content that you put out there that doesn't harm you in the future, but really push your brand forward. So that's creativity, that's entrepreneurship. But there needs to be mentors to kind of to create this kind of economy that the schooling system can provide or can create if there is a entrepreneurship module or subject introduced. So who's going to be the mentors?
Okay, because my worry is, because at the end of the day, it's still under a capitalist system, which, like I've mentioned before, that I'm slowly becoming against.
Okay, why?
Because if I date everything back to, I don't actually really want to say pre-colonial Africa, but I'll just say, and of all the information that I've learned about pre-colonial Africa, capitalism wasn't really a true African thing, right? There's always been some sort of collaboration amongst African people, specifically for Africa in this case. Or rather, there was a different system, different economic system. So with this because at the end of the day, colonization is forcing yourself into, like forcing your ideals into, your ideas and all of ideas, philosophies and principles and all of this way of life into a certain individual, in the case of people. So because of that, I feel like we're still forcing things which aren't, how can I say, naturally the way that we function as African people, you see. So how are we? That's why I even once asked you, like, what's the least violent way to actually dismantle the entire capitalist system, And then you said it's changing something about desire, changing I don't remember the exact words, but it was something like, do you remember?
Yes, changing desires of people. So if the reason why capitalism is so successful is because they really activate the desires of people. So you would watch TV, you will be on YouTube, but suddenly you want to drink Coke. And you don't know where the urge from Coke comes from. But what you didn't realize is that for that hour or so, there was 2 or 3 Coke adverts on it. So when you walk into the shop, the one thing that you recognize is Coke. So you buy yourself a Coke because this is the thing. So what capitalism does is, well, they really activate the desires of people so effectively through massive marketing campaigns. So if you change the desire of people that you don't need 15 pairs of shoes, you do not have to drink Coke, you can just get tap water, stuff like that, then you dismantle capitalism. But with the dismantling of capitalism, there's also a number of people who's going to lose their jobs. For example, if you, like, I had this fantasy of destroying the sugar industry, because sugar is the biggest cause of chronic illnesses in the world. So if they are the biggest cause of chronic illnesses in the world, why are we still consuming so much sugar? So let's get rid of the sugar industry. If we get rid of the sugar industry, who's not going to have work?
I mean, obviously, like, there's some sort of sacrifice that needs to be made, right?
Okay, so let's take it from production level. So then there is not going to be sugar plantations anymore. So the people working in those sugar plantations, they're gone. They don't have work. All right, that's a couple of 100,000, let's say, million. So then the factories where people are working in processing this also, they also have to close down. So all of these sugar things is done. So now you don't have the raw product of sugar or the crystals anymore to go to your Coca-Colas or to your various food products. So there's no sugar for this major production. So people have to lose their jobs there also, because now you cannot make Cadbury chocolates. You cannot make what doesn't have sugar in it.
I guess water.
I guess water. So just by destroying the sugar industry, even though the sugar is so toxic to people, you destroy the whole capitalist system just by that. But who loses? Everyone.
But then that's where the invention, or rather the introduction of something else new, because at the end of the day, work isn't necessarily supposed to be how we see work today, which is going to work, which is basically working in a factory, producing products, or working in an office, you know, that's what capitalism also brought.
100%.
You know?
So what is the alternative?
So
what is the alternative to the capitalist system? What is the alternative to... What did you propose?
Because I proposed that, do you think even if entrepreneurship could be introduced practically, it will even work? Because at the end of the day, Africans aren't naturally capitalists. We're not necessarily... Well, we had our own economic system that we functioned, right? There was livestock, herding of livestock, having farms. But I think if, according to what I learned, it was more of something that was more collaborative, you know. I mean, there's Ubuntu that we've always had, there's Ujamaa, you once explained it to me, but I'm still learning about, which is basically African socialism. And so what I'm trying to say is literally not following the Western way of doing things. Because at the end of the day, it's not the only way to do things, right? For example, I can say, maybe since, for example, Africans are heavily into art, we've always been naturally artists, from what I've learned, right? We can always somehow form an economy under that. We love dancing, we love music, we have rhythm. Okay, yeah, but yeah, so you understand me.
Okay. The human can do without art if we break it down to essentials. So if we get to the point of what do we need as humans to stay alive, then it's food. So now the big question for me is, who owns the food industry? Who produces food? Is it farmers or is it companies?
It's farmers. And yeah, farmers are the producers, but they work with the companies, if I can put it that way.
Exactly. So the farmer doesn't have a market without the company. So the farmer produces for a company. So the company dictates the price of food production and the export value or the local consumption. So even food production in the capitalist system is complex. Because how many Africans can produce food? How many Africans in a city can produce food? Just think about it. We undo capitalism, but who can produce food?
Ourselves. The thing is, there's so many things that are already a result of the capitalist system. So if we were to go back, for example, we're already in a building, right? And there's rent. And what I'm trying to say is, like, for example, a city, there wouldn't be a place where Africans could actually, or rather people could rather, you know, plant their own food. But what I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, all of that, like the relationship between the farmer and the company, in between is money. Money has, from what I've learned again, money has no intrinsic value. It was created after, okay, I wanted to just talk about the history of banking, but basically, what I've came to discover is that money has no intrinsic value. It's just made out of literally thin air. And of course, the thing of resources such as gold and all these reserves, they are all Western ideologies which we never really cared about because we had our own ways of living. So between the farmer and the company, the thing that's holding everything together is the money, which if the farmer was African and really was still living according to the old times, they wouldn't really care about that because that's not where they've always seen value.
The most problematic idea that I have post-apartheid South Africa, but also after independence in Africa, is the idea of Africa, the idea of the African. As a continent, we first have to resolve that question, and I've talked about this before. There is no universal central African value, culture. The pre-colonial history of Africa, for many scholars paint it as a culture where we care about each other on this continent. On this continent, we sold our brothers and sisters to white slavers. This is what happened in this. People doesn't take it from there. Is that not a lot of the white slavers got onto the African continent. It was the Africans who brought them to the port stations, and these people were sold. So this romantic idea of pre-colonial Africa as a united, with a unified culture is a very problematic idea. So if commodity on this continent was humans, why are we surprised today that one of the biggest commodities on this continent is still humans in labor? Cheap labor. So there's before we can undo a system, we first have to do introspection for us as Africans on this continent. And then we need to be honest with ourselves. And once we are honest with ourselves, then we can move forward. But I don't think we are there yet. We desire everything that is produced in Europe, China, Russia, wherever. But we do not desire something that comes from this continent.
Well, they made us desire it, rather. Right? And maybe some of us are not even aware of. I mean, when I was growing up as a kid, I've always thought that's how life is.
So what was a human's life worth on the African continent during the period of slavery?
What was it worth?
Yeah. Sometimes it was a bottle of alcohol. Sometimes it was trinket, an armband or something. We desire those things. Africans desire those things. So now you're saying is that desire was put by Europeans, was given to us, or it was programmed. We were programmed to desire a bottle of alcohol or trinkets.
Okay, then what was the pre-colonial African way of life then?
There was not a unified one.
But which one was there? Because that's what I'm trying
There wasn't a unified one.
It wasn't unified, right? But what was it then?
So the idea of Africa is one, also didn't exist. Africa is not even, there's no, African, the idea of Africa and African is a European exported idea of what is Africa.
I know. Okay. Yeah, I think, but I really still want us to talk about this, but let's move on to the next topic.
But can we wrap up just that section with regards to youth unemployment? So there's a number of things that we need to consider with youth unemployment. Is that if we want to address it, we have to look at the schooling system. But this schooling system, how are we going to approach this? Is it the topic that the issue that you're saying is that are we going to produce entrepreneurship and unemployment for a capitalist system? Capitalist system that is still keeping them unemployed, the majority. In a capitalist system, there needs to be a large pool of unemployed people so that labor is cheap. So if we fix the schooling system, then we need to fix it in such a way that there's more employment and less dependent on a capitalist system. And that's the balancing act that we need to get right.
Will it ever be achieved though? Because basically that is basically going against what capitalism is about. Because it's never achieved, if from what I've seen across all the world, really.
I think in the Scandinavian countries, they get it right. But it's how we approach it. It's not a short-term fix, it's a long-term fix. And it's time that we sit down and think about a long-term vision then rather than a short-term vision. That by the next 5 years, we have X amount of unemployment rate to drop by this. It's a long-term issue.
I see. Because just to wrap up, I was gonna say, I mean, especially if it's a long-term issue, within that long-term gap, there are so many things that come in between that could even still disrupt or not influence the objective to never even be achieved, you know? Because at the end of the day, it's not like everything is just gonna be straight. It'll be, you know what I mean?
I get what you mean. So maybe we must look for a new humanity.
Actually, you asked that question, but I don't think we have time. Maybe we can always discuss it in the next episode.
A new humanity, yes.
Yeah.
Can discuss.
But yeah, a lady by the name of Asipe Nombeu asked a question which actually I like ever since I've been in the Western Cape, have also always been curious about. Let me look for it. So basically, she was asking about. She said maybe look into the colored youth genocide happening in the Cape Flats.
But go to the first one.
Okay, so the first one is. Okay, so she said that when you guys have time, we need to talk about how neglected colored youth are in this country.
Okay, Simone, so what do you think?
The colored youth in the country.
Yeah, and being neglected.
Neglected?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but then youth is what age group?
In South Africa, 14 to 35.
14 to 35, okay, I'm in that gap. I don't really have a comment about it. I mean, I don't think that we're neglected. I don't think it's a neglect. I think it's that that there's more of an entitlement in the young group, youth, and that they expect that things are supposed to be given to them, as before, obviously, when like the freedom fighters were young, they had to fight for what they wanted. And now that they got it, in fact, they didn't get it. They got it for other people to enjoy. So then now that everything is, sort of given to them, they expect more. It's the same thing. We had a discussion about the elections where we said that's the reason why most of the young people didn't vote, because why? Why must I vote? For what? And a lot of the things that I think that their focus is also on the European culture, on what things that we don't have. If you see what our young people are doing today, they have the same look. If you look at what slay queens are all about, doesn't matter what race you are, it's the same look. They all look the same. There's no originality anymore. So that it also points to their desires of what do they actually want. Are they really being neglected? By who? Who's supposed to pay attention to you? See, it's like this little bit nagging for attention. And that's my take on it. And I work with young people. So that's my perspective on the people that are young girls that I work with, and boys. Like, that's what they desire. They want this ideals. And if you look at the statuses that they put up, it's about, hashtag goals, hashtag wedding goals, hashtag relationship goals. It's everything that they don't have, but they expect it to be given to them.
Okay, I have a slightly different say. So like I said, when I came to the Western Cape, the first thing that blew my mind was the segregation. In fact, there was this one photographer. We took like an aerial photograph of, I'm not sure where, but I think there's this suburb, and it's just it's divided by, I think it was a highway, or is it a railway line, and on the other side is like a very disadvantaged community there. But if we're talking about the neglected colored youth, actually I want to say I feel like they are. Why? In fact, personally, I think the entire colored community, because the time you were still staying at the house, I even got to a point where I even asked Jacob, like, since he studied politics, since he has such a good understanding of society and and all of this, why doesn't he take it upon himself? Because really, leadership at the end of the day, I think it's it's self
empowerment.
No, like you call yourself into leadership. You
Development.
don't have to be, you call yourself into being a leader. So that's what I'm trying to say. So I even asked Jacob that, like, why doesn't he do that and represent? Because I personally felt like the colored community doesn't have a representation, like of someone representing them. Because at the end of the day, even where I did my in-service training, this lady, she used to call me her son. I was very close with a old colored lady, and she once said, mostly back in the communities, the young kids, they look up to the gangsters. Most that drive Mercedes Benzes with like necklaces and stuff, because that's all they see.
Yeah.
They don't know anything further beyond than that.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, like, for me, for example, in the black community, a very simple example that hits close to home is Casper. My cousin stayed literally a street away from him. So me used to be seeing him all the time before he became successful. Already he's my inspiration. I'm sure you guys are aware of that on Voices of the South. So I absolutely feel like the colored youth is neglected. And the more I came across colored guys, especially when I worked in Amazon, and they told me about the stories, because most of them stayed in Mitchell's Plain and Manenberg, I was like very mind blown,
So my point is going to be controversial.
And I want to start off with say, fuck my coloredness. Just like that. I am not a colored person. So just because I was racially classified under apartheid, and that classification continued in post 1994, doesn't mean that I have to agree to that particular classification. And this is at the heart of the colored identity and the colored problem, is that you were put because you were not black, nor white, nor Indian. So whatever is mixed, you in that, and now you are colored.
So we were always neglected anyway.
Yeah. So
technically.
So what then happened was that this particular group was then given petty apartheid privileges, where they thought, no, they were taught that they were better than black people. So they are in post 1994. They missed it. They missing to be better than black people, because suddenly you have a government that doesn't treat them with a kind of petty privilege. And so for me, at the heart of the colored identity is they missing their petty privilege. That petty apartheid privilege that your hair needs to be straightened to become closer to white, or you need to speak a particular way, or you need to drive, or you need to have a lighter complexion. So all of these things is toxic within the colored community. Now I know after people going to watch this that I'm going to get a lot of flack, but this is the truth. Colored people is one of the most racist people that you can be with. They're using the K word without immunity. They're using it. They would always call black people they and all of these things. So they marginalize themselves. So they're not neglected. They marginalize themselves because they desire apartheid privilege. So the youth are raised in that particular kind of petty privilege because they don't want to mix. The moment they start mixing with black people and other people, then they won't feel marginalized. But if you stay in that, then you will see yourself as a marginalized community and identity. So that's my point when it comes to they're not neglected. They need to step out of that cocoon, apartheid cocoon that they were in.
Okay, and then what about, because she also, Asipe also mentioned this point over here, né, about maybe also looking to the colored youth genocide that's happening in the Cape Flats. Would you say then the reason that you just gave out now is one of the main causes of the genocide that they're talking about? And I think genocide is a really big word here. Maybe you should have, it's not necessarily genocide, well, my opinion, but...
So genocide has become a fashion word. And people doesn't know the extent of genocidal. And they doesn't know what genocidal is. So if there was a colored genocide taking place in Cape Town, especially youth, then it means there's one race killing another race. Meaning that another racial group in South Africa had to kill white people, colored people. So who is killing the colored youth in colored communities in South Africa?
The colored people.
Colored people, so then it cannot be a genocide. A genocide is always a racial basis. So if you look at the first genocide, not the first genocide, but in modern history, one of the biggest genocides that took place was the Nama and the Herero in Namibia. You had German settlers and the German colonial power killing those people just because of a particular race. Nazi Germany killed Jews. 1972 in Burundi, Tutsi killed Hutu. 1994 in Rwanda, Hutu killed Tutsi. All of these issues is where one racial group tried to exterminate another group. So that is a flawed argument. There is not a colored genocide taking place.
I think that is based on gangsterism. The gangsterism in the area is the main culprit there, I guess.
So now the question is, who started gangsterism on the Cape Flats?
Wasn't it the apartheid government?
Apartheid government to counter the ANC MK soldiers. That's why they still have immunity in most of the in politics in South Africa. Because there is a big political tool in politics in the Western Cape nationally. This is the reality.
I think we need to continue this conversation in the next state. We've already hit almost 30 minutes, so
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to wrap up, TP.
Alright, yeah, because I actually have so many questions and
So this will be up to be continued.
definitely to be continued. So yeah, wrapping it quickly up. So catch us again on the next episode, episode 4. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You'll find this episode under Jacob Cloete on YouTube. And oh yeah, please definitely send your comments, what you think about what we've been talking about. If you have a few questions also, please just type them down. And yeah.
And if you disagree with me, was Dala Masakan. Please, I'm available.
So yeah, peace out and see you on the next episode.
And Machikama,
It's the colored race. It's even the Khoisan people, because they I feel like they're excluded. I don't know much about them.
Excluded from what?
I don't like for example, we know Zulu people. Like what I'm trying to say is they're not.
But colour doesn't have a culture. Coloured people don't have a culture.
Okay, let's say custom.
Collective.
Yeah, like a custom.
Yeah.
So there's a difference
we
between
focus on
culture and
religion.
custom.
Yeah.
So custom is something which have a tradition over years. And there is particular rules and norms and standards in that particular. So if you take then lobola, and if you take circumcision, those are in certain
customs.
Yeah, in certain communities that's a custom. It has to happen, and it becomes kind of identifier of that group. Now in the colored community, you don't find it.
Don't have it.
Because it's a group that was put together during apartheid because they were not racial pure, and that's what a lot of people doesn't get. The colored group is not the racial pure, so they're not black, nor they white, nor they Indian. So the biggest thing to keep pureness in race was the Immorality Act during apartheid. So make sex illegal between races, so you cannot create mixtures like coloreds. So coloreds has always been impure, like we don't want you kind of. So can I, Simone, for instance, is that her grandma's white. The moment she married a colored person, she was excluded from the from her family.
Her own mother.
Her own mother, and all of the kids from her grandpa, cannot access that community or that family because they are impure. They are not racial pure. That's the biggest thing about it. But there's a rejection.
It's the same thing that Trevor Noah spoke about with his parents.
For example, you see, if I didn't know about Trevor's story, I wouldn't know. Because I think I once mentioned that back at home, there is a colored community. But the way I've grown up, I've always seen colored people back at home as black. Like, there's so much, we can relate in so many ways, right? Because obviously when I come across a white person, I know I can't relate with them authentically, let me put it like that. But with a colored person back at home, I can. So because of that authentic, vice versa relation, I've always seen them, okay, they're black, but obviously they're not black, but like, you understand what I'm saying?
We get it.
So, but when I got here, I was wondering, what's happening with some of the colored people here? And then when I did my in-service training, I could see some we could see they don't really are not vibing with having black superiors and black managers, but some were okay, some were absolutely. I think I once mentioned you guys that where I was working, there was at the toilet someone wrote, and then they called like a huge meeting. Someone wrote, like we're tired of these covers, right? So then the entire factory everything was stopped. They called the entire factory and said, no, must these HR people. So I was like, and what's happening? And then I went to Amazon, and that's another thing. There's some colored people that, okay, now this comes from my perspective now. There's some colored people that I can see that, okay, these ones are authentic. We can just relate. And there are those that are kind of like pushy. They don't want to associate with black people. Because I remember I went to this festival, I'll never forget. I went to a festival with that white friend of mine that I had at the time. And then, so since we left Sunday morning and this festival was running until Sunday night, we sold our tag. So we were just going around, you know, as people were coming in, were selling. This colored guy was coming, so now I'm thinking, you know, I must already have that thing. Abraham was selling tickets. He just looked at me and then he walked away. Like, I was like, what the hell just happened? I wanted to say something because I was really touched, because I'm like,
But we were also brought up to fear black people.
Even white people. So the one of the biggest things that apartheid is successful is the black predator, or die swart gevaar. Now, what colored people doesn't want to accept is that if they just did a little bit of digging, then you'll see their grandparents were black, or their great grandparents.
And the other thing that this needs to be addressed, because I think for me also the mask was on for a long time, and I didn't know that we were supposed to behave any differently. Because one thing that opened my eyes as well was this guy that posted a video maybe last year, I think, or beginning of the year, and he was driving past there by where is that? Mitchell's Plain Beach? But not Mitchell's Plain. Anyway, sorry, I might get the area wrong. He was driving on that stretch with a lot of dunes, basically. So he was driving through, as a colored guy, and he was now talking about, look here where these people are building. Kailicha side. Look where these people are now building houses. Can you believe they don't even want to pay rent? They don't even want to buy the land or anything. They just want to come and build their houses here so that they don't even have to pay rent or have bonds or anything, not pay the money. And he was like swearing and saying this is not right. Like, they shouldn't be doing this. Colored guy. Of course, there was black people building the things. So he had this whole video and everybody was sharing it and saying, yeah, like, how can these people now just think that they can claim the land and carry on? But like, do you even know the history? Do you even know why they're doing this? You able to walk into a bank and get a bond because of your race
and your apartheid privilege
and your apartheid privileges? But these people can't walk into the bank and they're gonna get the same attention that you're giving them, or what's the word I'm looking for, like response in the bank, and they have to go to certain banks. Like, you'll notice certain types of banks have more black people in it than other banks, and so that's where they can get loans easier. We don't even go into SASA payments and stuff because this is like a whole different conversation. But I mean, this guy posted this video, and that was for me, like, the awareness is not even there. You just look at these people in inverted commas and say, like, they're just building their houses anyway.
For me, he's still operating in an apartheid psyche, so meaning he's an apartheid subject.
Yes, but he doesn't know any different.
Yes, and that's...
But don't be that ignorant and post it out there.
But you see, you cannot... That's why Runaway Slave is such an important book for me. And my dissertation on the becoming and the belonging to these categories, it was another important. So I started off this book projects of mine with the emancipation of me, Jacob. And then the second book is understanding these categories that I was in, that is causing so much violence. For example, these people have become colored. You become black.
Yeah.
You become white. You become Indian. So a political system refuses you to cross these boundaries that they're creating. So they put laws in place. They put the Group Areas Act in place. They put the Immorality Act. So Group Areas Act is you stay in this area, you don't move. Immorality say you cannot have sex with this. You only have sex with these people in this particular group. Then you have the what is the Petty Apartheid Act, where black people, and there's a separation between non-whites and whites when it comes to public space. Yeah, so it's only whites only, blacks only. So all of these things put a particular psychological boundary in your head that you cannot. If you do it, you go to prison. If you do it, this is. So now you're sticking to this group. So you find a sense of belonging there. So I am now colored. I am now white. I am now black, and I'm Indian. So now my question is, and this is more my postdoctoral work, is the unbecoming of this. So that's why I can sit here and say, fuck my coloredness. Because I understand that this is a particular racial category during apartheid that made me into this particular person. I need to hate black people. I need to feel better than black people. But I need to be subservient to the boss, the white person. That is, so the moment you see, fuck this, or you start with the unbecoming process. So I'm interested in the unbecoming. How do you undo these racial categories? And kind of find a place where you are not restricted by racial boundaries, that you can cross over and find a sense of belonging in all of those categories.
Yeah, man, the mind is, and obviously all of this is just happening in the mind.
Yes.
Because that's what I'm thinking, like, yes, like it.